Welcome back to Change Ed. Everyone is talking about this amazing podcast. We have listeners phoning in. We have so many incredible guests. We are fortunate to have a very, very talented educator with us today. But first, my name is Andrew Kuhn. I'm an education consultant from Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. Here with me is everyone's favorite co-host.
It has been decided.
Above sidekick, now the main co-host.
Yeah. The people have spoken, according to the stickers.
Silently whispering.
No, screaming. Patrice Semachek from the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, and I am also an educational consultant.
And here with us, we are thrilled to have the man, the myth, the legend, Sam Stansbery. Welcome, sir.
Hi. Thank you.
We are super excited to have you. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and introducing yourself to the Change Ed Nation?
Sure. Again, I am Sam Stansbery. I teach at the Norristown Area High School in Norristown, Pennsylvania. I teach math and computer science, and this is my 7th year at the high school and my 26th year in education.
Wow. Have all of those been at Norristown?
They've all been at Norristown.
Wow.
Yes.
That's very cool.
Yeah, you don't see longevity like that in one district so much. That's amazing.
Well, and it's really cool to see the kids that I taught in elementary school. They see me again at high school. And I told them, see, I told you I was coming back. I was coming back.
I really shouldn't have made Mr. Stansbery mad. That's a bad choice. I actually thought when you were going to say 7, I thought you were going to say this is your 7th podcast. Like you're a podcasting professional and you were going to teach us something.
First podcast.
First podcast.
First one. Well,
Wow.
welcome.
Well, this is the biggest podcast stage in Pennsylvania. So welcome. As you know, for Change Ed, we have our podcast that we produce every single week. And with that, though, we have a magazine that we send out to all of our educators once a month. And this month, we are focusing on the big shifts that come with the new steel standards, because standards are standards, and I don't mean that to downplay them at all, but when it comes to steels, it's all about the instructional implementation changes. And while I know that you aren't specifically in the steels world, what you're doing is so important and impactful and meaningful, because these shifts that we are making in our instructional practices go beyond any acronym that we have. It's good teaching is good teaching. And we've had a lot of conversations about there are now better best practices than when we were purely students, or even when we were trained to become educators. And so your work is so inspiring, and this idea of students inspiring students. So I wanted to be sure to set the stage and say that you're the educator that everybody wants. The work that you do, but you also do it in a way that is very humble and is uplifting to students. So I know I'm already pumping you up here, but I could you just tell us a little bit more about what specifically you are doing and teaching at the high school, and then how you even got into computer science?
It's a lot there. I think. Well, okay. I'll go back to. I started working, doing some research in the classroom. And in doing the research in the classroom, we were doing something with math problems and seeing how students solve different math problems and how fast they could do it, and even looking at the latency between starting one problem and finishing another. Anyway, forget all that. The big thing was we had to generate a lot of math problems. And I was just always thinking, like, this is it's a lot to do to figure out, you can roll a dice, you can do all this stuff, but there's computers and all these things are already there, and they can help you do it if you know how to make them do this. So it was just kind of a nice journey to start learning to program computers and start to understand, okay, well, so this is where math can go. This is where I can use this stuff, and it's right here, it's right now. So I just thought, like, when I started teaching math at the high school, one of the first things I did or tried to do was bring a coding club, just again to give students who are hopefully enjoying math, give them a place to use it, to understand, like, you can actually use the math that you're learning in class, and you can do it in a way that builds tools and things that you can use and do things for you and others. Yeah, that's kind of what got me into computer science, and I love teaching it. I love teaching math, and I love teaching computer science. It's kind of hard to, I know that, like, eventually I'm probably going to make a choice, as we build our computer science program at the high school, but I've really enjoyed having my foot in both. So
Well,
And I don't know
there's
if that
so many
yeah.
connections between the two. Like to be able to be well versed in the math as well as the computer science, there are so many connections between the two, and I think it would, in my opinion, it would probably serve the students well to have someone who really understands both.
And the other thing that you're talking about is something is a common theme on the podcast is the integrative piece, right? That you found a way to blend these two things to become one instead of having them be separate, which they very easily could be separate, but you brought them together and made them part of the whole instead of having them be something that was separate. At P&C, you were one of the session presenters, and you had talked, obviously not only there, but you've shared this presentation with others, but your presentation was on pixel power. It had to do with computer science, and I'm interested specifically in the part where if you could share a little bit about how this tagline of students inspiring students, how were you involving your students differently than I think a lot of other educators maybe have thought about or might be considering, and this might be inspiring to them to do that?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, and I said this during the presentation, it really is about recruitment for computer science and getting kids to, first off, know that we have computer science programs. But the first year I did this, it was me as the presenter, and I would go into different math classes in our high school and run an hour of code. And it was fully plugged, so it was, kids were using computers to build something or do some type of program. Then it started, that was okay. And I think that does help recruitment, letting students know that you have computer science in your school. But, for longevity, I think we also need to let all students in all of the schools that feed into the high school, they need to know that we have computer science and that computer science is important. Help them understand, what is computer science? And also going back to letting students have a place to put their knowledge. So, we have students in our computer science class. I teach computer science principles. It's an AP class typically. So we teach a lot of concepts, but then allowing the students to have a place to then go teach it to someone else, I think is really powerful. So again, giving students a place to put the knowledge that they're hopefully picking up.
And what exactly happened behind the scenes to where your students felt comfortable enough? Did they volunteer? Were they voluntold? How did that process come about where they're like, yes, send me to an elementary school. I'd love to go back and work with students who don't know anything about computer science just because maybe they haven't been told, or maybe they know service level, right? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's really funny. It's fully voluntary, and it's funny to see how many students actually will volunteer to go and teach a class, to teach an elementary school class. I would have been terrified in high school if someone said, you're going to go teach this lesson to a bunch of elementary students. Preparation is key. Like, they have to know that you've got them. So I think one thing that keeps them coming back, because again, my students from last year are also invited to go in the subsequent years, is just let them know, like, look, I've got you. We've got scripts that you can use if you don't feel like you've got this. Presentations are made, all of which the students can change up, and I encourage them to. But it just gives them some foundation, so they know they're not just being thrown out there in the middle of nowhere without any idea of what they're doing.
It sounds like through your process, you're really empowering them. You're empowering them to do the work. And, one of the things that's been true about education for a long time is that we as educators actually learn things, and we have to learn them so that you can teach them. You have to really understand it and know it to be able to go teach it. So for these students, they have to really understand what they're talking about and almost go deeper with it so that they are able to explain it. So it welcomes all of the learners in to be part of that conversation.
Right. I mean, and giving class time so that they can meet with people they're going to be presenting with. We try to pair students up so that, again, they have multiple supports in what I think is a very scary situation. Again, if I was in high school and someone said, go teach an elementary class, I don't know that I would have volunteered for that.
The other thing I wanted to add into this, because I had the unique opportunity, which I'm grateful for, to come and watch this unfold. In the post-COVID world, where we have a new heightened awareness and focus and intentional energy that's being put into social-emotional learning and those skills, this was an incredible opportunity to focus cross-generationally and have elementary students helping high school students by building up their confidence, putting them in a situation where they could teach and learn and instruct, but also vice versa, where high school students can be helping elementary students. And that might not be an everyday occurrence, depending on your family scenario and setup that you might have, or the dynamics that are at play. It's not every day that you see a high school student talking to and working with an elementary student. And the thing that was neat wasn't quantifiable. It was kind of a quality scenario where the elementary students were asking high school students about, what's high school like, or when do you eat lunch, or, how do you get here, what happens? And the high school students in reverse were like, oh man, they still have this world globe. I can't believe they have that. Or, I read that book. Right? So it was like a walk down memory lane for them. So it was this beautiful blending of these two worlds that, they're in completely different buildings. They, when you leave elementary school, you usually don't go back. You keep growing forward. So I think that, while it's not something that we can necessarily measure with our assessments or exams or, things that we have to prove, this is something that happened, and you brought these two communities together that are within a bigger, larger community.
Yeah, and I also thought it's cool to see the growth from, like, last year when we went. There's some students that were really, really shy, and I never thought they would come back. But they came back, and they were like, are you doing that again this year? We'd love to go. And just seeing, like, the growth, the leadership growth in the students from being, again, shy to, like, actually taking ownership of it and, like, owning it. And I also think it's amazing to see I prepare as much as I can, but I never feel like I'm as prepared as I would like to be for the students. And just to watch them, like, take ownership of it. It's like they don't even need me there. They're like, yeah, we're good. Go. Get out of the classroom. Let us do our thing. So.
But that's what student agency is all about, and it's very clear from hearing you talk and from hearing Andrew talk about the few times he's been out to see you, is that you've created a culture in your classroom that allows this risk-taking, that allows students to be comfortable enough to say, you know what, I'm going to try something new, and it could be crazy scary, but I know I have the support of my teacher and my colleagues, and so I think that speaks volumes, and I think I would have been very excited to have you as a teacher.
And you're doing something we talk a lot about, which is you're modeling the learning and you're being a lead learner, right? So you're like, I'm going to venture into this. I don't know how it's going to play out. And, you've expanded your work from last year, having this, just working on the pixel power, to this year you did a carnival. So you increased it and you could involve more students. They could see it grow. They can see it come to fruition, but have the ability to be in it from the beginning. And
I want to add, like, just the principal at that elementary school in particular is just amazing. And she's all about let the students do it. Let the students take ownership and go. She's just a huge supporter. So big part of why this happens.
That's awesome.
And that's I appreciate you bringing that up. Everybody's got to be involved, right? Like, you're not going to get anywhere if it's you on your own. So having a team that understands and supports and communicating out what we do, and you've involved a lot of layers of individuals, for sure. The one other thing I wanted to mention with this is that I think this is a really good, strong example of project-based learning as well. You're involving them on this project, and the students are the ones doing the work. The students are the ones learning, and you're modeling so much for them. So, Sam, as is tradition on the podcast, I know you're a huge fan and you listen all the time, is we
run out of time.
We have run out of time, but I would like to give you the second to last thoughts or closing thoughts. Do you have any closing thoughts or something maybe you didn't get to mention you'd like to share with the Change Ed Nation?
What is your favorite part about the work that you're doing right now?
My favorite part is the students, and they're at a time in their life where they don't know what they want to do yet. And they just have they have their whole world ahead of them. And it's so cool to see kids, come and say, like, I'm going to go study computer science. That's huge. So, and if I had any part of that, that's amazing to me. So, yeah, I would say that's my favorite part.
That's awesome.
Sam, for what I know about you, you love learning and you're very committed to learning. And this is a vocation for you, not a job. And there's a significant difference because your commitment level to it is very, very high. So much so that you're like, I want to continue learning about computer science. You've gone back to school. You're teaching teachers. So I think for you, to your credit, you are a teacher inspiring teachers in a lot of ways. Thrilled to have you on the podcast and have you come on. And so on behalf of the entire Change Ed team, thank you for being here, Sam. Thank you for tuning in and listening to your favorite 15-ish minutes of the week. And remember to empower your students to inspire other students.
Wow, that was a good one.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe.